The sun was so hot in the desert that it felt like it was going to melt everything. The ground was all cracked, like a broken clay pot. The rocks in the distance shimmered in the heat, as if the world had turned into a mirage. Right there, thrown next to a dry, ugly cactus, lay a woman. Her name was Harper, but at that moment, she barely even remembered who she was. She was weak, her lips cracked, her eyes full of sand, her arms tied behind her back with plastic straps that dug into her skin. She didn't have the strength to scream or even to cry. Suddenly, clop, 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 the sound of hooves on the stony ground. Harper barely managed to turn her head, but saw someone approaching. A man, on horseback. He looked like he'd walked straight out of an old Western movie. Tall, broad-shouldered, an old hat, his shirt clinging to his body with sweat and dust. He stopped the horse next to her and dismounted slowly. He looked at her closely and said in a calm voice, almost as if he were speaking to a friend, "You don't look like someone who should be left here to die." She tried to answer, but only managed a cough. He knelt, examined her wounds, her marked arms, her dirty, bloodied face. "I'm going to untie you, okay?" he said. Harper still thought she might be dreaming, but he took a knife from the horse's saddlebag and cut the ties slowly, carefully. Her arms fell limply, stiff and sore. She shivered. "Easy now. You're okay," he said, in a way that suggested he had experience tending to the wounded. He slipped an arm behind her back, the other under her legs, and lifted Harper as if she weighed no more than a feather. He placed her on the horse and climbed up behind her, holding the reins. "My name's Cole," he said. "We're not far. Hang in there." Harper wanted to ask, "Who are you? Why did you save me?" But she couldn't even think straight anymore. The sun was pulling her back like a hot, cruel blanket. She blacked out. When she woke up, she was somewhere else. Everything felt different. The air was cool. A damp cloth pressed against her forehead. She opened her eyes slowly. She was inside a cabin, maybe a tent, she wasn't sure. The walls were canvas, the ceiling a little crooked but steady. The smell of burning wood hung in the air, comforting. Nearby, a pot bubbled gently over a low fire. Cole was sitting at a table, sharpening a knife, shirtless. The light caught his back, and Harper saw scars. Many of them. They weren't from accidents or time. They were the kind of marks you get when you faced a lot in life. She looked at him, unsure if she should feel afraid or safe. He noticed she was awake, turned his face, and gave her a small smile. "You made it. You're alive." His voice was like a blanket on a cold night. And in that instant, Harper realized that maybe, just maybe, she was safe. But there was so much more behind that mysterious man. Because Cole wasn't just some cowboy lost in the desert. He was, in fact, a millionaire who had disappeared off the map and now lived in hiding right here beneath the scorching sun. But that part, Harper was yet to discover. She blinked a few times, trying to understand where she was. The pain was still there, but less intense. Her body felt like it had been battered by a storm. Even so, there was something there, a strange peace, a good kind of silence. Cole stood up from his chair and walked over to her with a cup of water in his hands. He knelt by the bed and held it out to her gently. "Slowly, don't drink it all at once." She took the cup with trembling hands and sipped a little. The water felt like the greatest gift in the world. "Where am I?" she whispered. "Somewhere no one can hurt you. At least, not while I'm around," he replied, his eyes locked on hers. Harper wanted to trust him, but something inside her still screamed, "Why would he do this? Who is he really?" While she rested, he went back to sharpening the knife. The sound was slow, rhythmic, as if it soothed his thoughts. "You should rest some more," he said, without looking at her. Who are you, really?" she asked. He paused for a moment, fell silent. Then he got up,
walked to a backpack in the corner, and pulled out a small metal box. He opened it. Inside was an old, dusty ID badge. Harper looked, and her eyes widened. It was a corporate badge from one of those giant companies that make the news. His name was right there. Colton Rivers, CEO. "You're a millionaire?" she asked, confused. He gave a half smile. "I was, before all this, before I gave up that world." "But why?" He took a deep breath, walked over to the tent window, and looked out at the golden horizon of the desert. Out there, in that world, no one really listens. Everyone wants something. They want to tear you down, drain you, use you. One day, I'd had enough. I took what I could, sold the rest, and disappeared. Came here. At least here, the silence is real. Harper fell silent for a while, thinking, trying to make sense of it all. "And why did you save me?" she asked firmly. He looked at her and answered simply, as if it was obvious. "Because no one deserves to be left to die. And because I saw in your eyes that you hadn't finished your story yet." That line echoed in her head. You hadn't finished your story yet. In the days that followed, Harper started to recover. Cole cared for her in his quiet but steady way. He made soup, changed her bandages, taught her to light a fire, even how to ride a horse. Little by little, she grew stronger and more curious. One night, while the fire crackled outside and the stars filled the sky, Harper sat beside him and asked, "Cole, did you know who I was before you found me?" He hesitated, but didn't lie. "I did." She swallowed hard. "So, why didn't you turn me in? There are people looking for me, and they're not exactly nice people."
He turned to her, eyes serious. "Because I'm hiding too. And people who are hiding, they know when they found another fugitive." Harper realized then they were alike. Two ghosts trying to outrun their pasts. But maybe, together, they could start over. Her adventure in the desert had begun as a nightmare. But now, beside a millionaire cowboy who'd given up everything, she was discovering something new. Strength, purpose, freedom. But the past never really disappears. And the desert, the desert still held secrets. That night, the wind blew harder. The canvas walls of the tent rustled, making sounds that felt like whispers. Harper couldn't sleep. Something inside her was restless. She slipped out of bed and walked to the door of the tent. Outside, Cole was sitting on a rock, looking at the sky as if waiting for an answer from above. "You feel it too?" she asked. "The wind changes before the bad things come," he replied, his eyes still on the stars. Harper sat beside him. They were silent for a few minutes until she said, almost in a whisper, "That man, the one who left me in the desert, he doesn't work alone." Cole looked at her. "Who is he?" Harper took a deep breath. It wasn't easy to talk about. "His name is Vaughn, one of my ex's security men, but not just any guard. He did the dirty work." "Your ex was dangerous?" She nodded, a heavy look in her eyes. "Very. Rich, influential. He used people like they were just pawns. When I found out things I shouldn't have, I tried to leave. He sent Vaughn to disappear me, left me in the desert like I was trash." Cole clenched his fists and stood up. "Then he probably knows you're still alive, and he'll come back to finish the job." "I know." They looked at each other. Something had changed. It wasn't just a survival story anymore. Now it was war. The next day, Cole took Harker to a hideout behind a rock formation. Inside, there were supplies, food, tools, and weapons. "You knew this could happen, didn't you?" she asked. He nodded. "I always expected the past to come back. I just didn't know it would come with you." Harper picked up one of the guns. Cole taught her how to load it,
aim and shoot. She wasn't the type who liked violence, but she wasn't the type to let herself be a victim twice either. Days passed. They prepared in silence. They watched the desert, mapped escape routes, trained. And then, on a hot morning, he appeared. Vaughn, in a black Jeep, accompanied by 2 armed men. They stopped not far from the cabin. Harper saw them from a distance, her heart racing. But she didn't run. She looked at Cole. "Let's finish this." Cole nodded. No mercy. The ambush was quick, precise. While Vaughn and his henchmen searched the empty cabin, Harper and Cole circled from behind, using the rocks as cover. Bam! One of the Jeep's tires burst. Fire, dust, screams. The fight was intense, but Harper was ready. She wasn't the woman left to die anymore. She was a warrior. And Cole, he was like a lion protecting his territory. In the end, Vaughn fell to his knees, defeated. "You should be dead," he muttered, glaring at Harper with hate. She stepped closer, staring him down. "Yeah, but you forgot one thing." "What?" "That even in the desert, flowers grow." Boom! With the threat eliminated, Harper and Cole knew they were free. But they also knew the outside world still existed. The difference? Now they were together. No masks, no past, just dust, freedom, and a new chance. When the dust settled and silence returned to the desert, Harper and Cole looked at the horizon for a long time. The sun began to set, painting the sky orange and purple. It felt like an ending, but actually, it was just the beginning. Harper sat on the cabin step, brushing the dust from her hands. Cole came and sat beside her, placing a canteen between them. "You were incredible today," he said. She smiled, a little surprised. "I just survived." "No, you chose to fight. That's different." Harper looked out at the desert. That place that once meant death now symbolized rebirth. "What now?" she asked. Cole took a sip from the canteen, thoughtful. "Now we have a choice." Harper turned to him. "Have you ever thought about making this a mission?" "What do you mean?" "There are more people like me, people who were discarded, silenced, hidden. If I hadn't found you, or if you hadn't found me." Cole looked at her, and for the first time since they met, a spark of hope lit up in his eyes. "You want to help people?" "Not just help," she said firmly. "I want to lift up those who've fallen, like you did for me." He was silent for a few seconds. Then he smiled. "Then let's build something here. A safe place, a refuge, and when it's needed, we'll go to them." And that's how it all started. Harper and Cole began transforming the cabin into a sanctuary. They used parts from abandoned cars, wood from old fences, and tools left behind in the desert. Each day, the place grew. New tents, a watchtower, solar panels that Cole patiently installed. Soon, stories started arriving. A young woman walking alone, fleeing an abusive husband. A former soldier haunted by trauma and without a home. A mother with 2 kids who needed to disappear from the radar to survive. All found shelter there. All were greeted with the same phrase Cole had said to Harper in the beginning. "You don't look like someone who should be left behind." Harper became a natural leader, strong, determined, but still with empathy in her eyes. At night, she and Cole would sit around the campfire with the newcomers, listening to their stories, offering food, water, and, most of all, a listening ear. And yet, the outside world began to take notice. Someone, a journalist, maybe, heard about the desert hideout and started investigating. Soon, rumors spread. A secret refuge in the middle of nowhere. A mysterious man who gave up millions to live among ghosts. A woman who survived death and now saves lives. Harper's name began to spread, and with it, danger. Because her ex was still out there, and what was left of Cole's fortune still had enemies thirsty for revenge.
The next morning, Harper stood outside, watching the sunrise, when Cole appeared with 2 mugs of coffee. "I got a warning," he said. "About what?" "They're coming. Government people. And maybe others." She took a deep breath. "Are we going to have to fight again?" Cole looked at her and answered with a half smile. "I think now we fight not just for ourselves, but for everyone who made it here." Harper stood up, not with fear, but with fire in her eyes, because now she was the one who lifted up the fallen. And the desert, once silent, became a battlefield where justice, redemption, and courage rode side by side. In the days that followed, the desert stopped being silent. Helicopters began to circle overhead. Drones crossed the sky like metallic flies. Harper and Cole knew they were being watched. At the makeshift base, now sheltering nearly 20 people, the atmosphere was tense. Children cried more at night. Adults whispered nervously among themselves. Harper climbed the small watchtower and scanned the horizon with her binoculars. There, far in the distance, she saw something that made her blood run cold. A convoy. 3 black pickups, a white van, and a car with mirrored windows. She rushed down. "They're coming," she told Cole. "They're not journalists. They're not curious onlookers. It's them." Cole nodded, already expecting this. He took a metal key hanging from a chain around his neck and walked over to an old chest hidden beneath the cabin floor. He opened it. Inside were documents, money, and an old military radio. He turned it on. "This is Colton Rivers, code 809. We need to activate Protocol Tempest." Harper looked at him, surprised. "Protocol what?" Cole turned off the radio, took a deep breath, and looked at Harper. "I didn't tell you everything. When I fled my old life, I took more than money. I took truths, things that could bring down a lot of powerful people. So I created Protocol with a few silent allies. If they ever found me, the world would also find what I hid." Harper's eyes widened. "You're telling me that they don't just want to silence me, they want to erase everything. Because if those truths come to light, there's no desert in the world where they can hide." Just then, a sound pierced the air. A gunshot. They ran outside. One of the newcomers, a young man named Luis, had been shot in the leg. A man in tactical gear stood on a hilltop, rifle in hand. He wasn't shooting to kill yet, but the message was clear. You're surrounded. Surrender or be wiped out. Cole pulled Harper inside to an old map pinned to the cabin wall. "Here, this spot. That's where I buried the files, all the secrets, the evidence. If we can get someone there and leak it to the world, they won't be able to touch us anymore. But how do we get out with this siege?" Cole smiled, for the first time in days. "With the one thing they underestimate, hope, and people who aren't afraid anymore." That night, under the moonlight, Harper gathered everyone. She told them the truth, about the documents, about the plan, about the risk. "If anyone wants to leave, we understand. But if you stay, you're not just fighting for yourselves. You're fighting so no one else gets left for dead. You're fighting to make sure the truth is never buried in the sand again." Silence. Then, one by one, they stayed. Men, women, children hiding behind the tents. No one left. The plan was daring. While one group pretended to surrender and distracted the armed men, Harper and 2 others would cross the desert via Cole's secret route. They'd reach the place where the files were buried, and from there, they'd broadcast everything. The next morning, the sun had barely risen, and there was already movement. Cole said goodbye to Harper with a firm handshake. "If I don't see you again," he began.
"You will," she interrupted. "I didn't come all this way to lose you now."
They smiled. And then she set off, backpack on her shoulders, the desert ahead, and the hope of a new world in her heart.
And as Harper walked, the wind hitting hard and helicopters rising in the distance, one thing was certain. If they wanted to silence the truth, then they'd have to face the roar of a woman who had survived the impossible. The heat was suffocating. The backpack weighed heavily on Harper's shoulders, and every step in the sand seemed to drain her strength. But she didn't stop. Beside her were Luis. Even with his injured leg, he insisted on coming. And Sadie, a middle-aged woman and former cryptography technician whom Cole had helped years ago. They followed the map, tracing a line between ancient rocks and marks on the ground. The landscape seemed lifeless, but every detail had been planned by Cole. Signs, clues, hidden codes in the emptiness. After hours of walking under the sun, they reached a rocky slope, partially covered in sand. "It's here," Harper said, pulling a small shovel from her backpack. Sadie pulled out a metal rod with an electronic tip, a locator, a gift from Cole, built from old radio parts. She swept the rod over the ground until it beeped. The ground there sounded hollow. They dug frantically. Soon a metal chest emerged, locked with 3 padlocks and a fingerprint sensor. But Cole had thought of everything. In a hidden compartment of the backpack, Harper found a chip containing his saved fingerprint embedded in a military-grade USB stick. Sadie inserted it, activated the system. The locks clicked open. Harper took a deep breath and lifted the lid. Inside were the files. Printed documents, flash drives, videos, audio recordings, bank records, damning conversations. Names of high-ranking people, politicians, CEOs, military officials, all connected by a dirty network of trafficking, corruption, and the disappearances of inconvenient people. People like her. She swallowed hard. "This could bring down the entire country," Luis whispered. Sadie was already connecting the devices to her laptop, starting the automatic upload to a secure cloud. The plan was simple: trigger a mass release. Hundreds of journalists, organizations, and channels would receive everything at once. But then, the noise. Drones. Lots of them. "They tracked us," Sadie shouted. Harper grabbed the gun. This wasn't just about surviving. It was about buying time for the upload to complete. "Keep the upload going," she shouted, climbing onto the rock and aiming at the drones. The machine swooped down, fast. A bullet whizzed past. Sadie typed furiously. Luis crouched behind the rock, trying to protect the chest. One of the drones got too close. Bam! Harper hit it dead on. The drone fell in flames. But another came, and this time it brought company. Armed men on motorcycles, wearing helmets and carrying rifles. "Upload at 89%, Sadie yelled. Harper ran, grabbed a smoke bomb from her backpack, and threw it toward the invaders. The gray cloud obscured their vision. Luis, struggling, set up makeshift explosives around the rock. They knew they might not make it out alive. "Harper, now!" Sadie shouted. 100%, upload complete. Harper hit the red button on the launch device. Signals were sent to dozens of servers, emails, open networks. Within seconds, the whole world knew. Newspapers began to report. International agencies triggered alerts. Cole's name, Harper's face, the desert base, the dirty secrets of the powerful were now in everyone's hands. A strange silence fell over them. It was as if the desert itself knew what had just happened. Then Sadie turned. "We did it!" But the peace lasted only seconds. An explosion. Luis had triggered the explosives to slow the soldiers down, but the blast threw them to the ground. Harper, dizzy, tried to get up, blood on her forehead. Sadie down, Luis motionless. She crawled to the laptop, now destroyed. But it didn't matter anymore. The world already knew. Hours later, Harper woke up in an improvised field hospital. Cole was by her side. "You did it," he said, eyes brimming. She tried to smile. "We did." On the TV in the background, journalists debated the scandals. The country was in shock. Mass arrests, political chaos, but also hope. Harper turned her head and saw a poster pinned to the tent wall. Project Renaissance. A new beginning starts in the desert. She closed her eyes and rested, not as someone wounded, but as someone reborn. The end, or perhaps just the beginning.